Is Cooking Mama mining bitcoins off of our switches? That's the question. Now, a couple days ago, I saw a lot of posting about this Cooking Mama game that just came out, and apparently it seems to have been mining bitcoins on our Nintendo Switches. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to start this video off by saying the game came out and it was just spontaneously removed. Now, it was pretty mysterious. You know, people wondered, oh shit, why the fuck did a Cooking Mama game just go AWOL? Well, the reality of it is, it went AWOL because, ladies and gentlemen, there was a big legal issue. Something about Nintendo not being able to get its shovelware out. Now, that being said, I have played the Cooking Mama franchise, you know, on the DS back in the day. It's nothing to write home about, in my opinion. It's okay. I played the Switch version, not that great. You know, it is what it is. It's just a set of mini games. If I wanted to do that, bro, I'd go back to playing Flash games. But anyways, this isn't a review of Cooking Mama. You know, if you're into cooking, you're into all that stuff, there's a game called Hell's Kitchen on the Nintendo Wii. I highly recommend you check that shit out. But that being said, let's get into it. Now, the whole thing about it today is kind of like virus investigations. You know, I wanted to talk about it, but I wanted to add my own flair, you know, cover it, do my own thing. And this is where we're going to get into actually analyzing the software to see if it could potentially be mining bitcoins. Now, the way we're going to be assessing this is because we have a homebrew switch, we're actually going to be running a system overlay that'll allow us to see the clock speed and the CPU, GPU, and memory clock speed in real time. We'll actually be able to see which cores are active, how fast the system is running, and how hot the system is running, and how fast fans are running. Basically, we'll be able to get a live output, frame by frame, second by second, of the Switch's system sensors, so to speak. And that's very important because we're going to be using that to showcase how this could or couldn't be using cryptocurrency mining. Now, in order to understand, you have to realize the Switch does not operate 100% all the time. There's always going to be games that push the Switch more or they don't push the Switch as much. For instance, playing games like The Witcher 3 or Breath of the Wild or even Dragon Quest XI are games that run on modern day game engines and they use the Switch to its absolute, you know, full potential. Especially games like The Witcher 3. While at the same time, games like The World Ends With You is obviously far less graphically demanding, so it pushes the Switch less. Now, let me just show you real quick what I mean. If you fire up games like The World Ends With You, you'll notice that in this graph, the GPU load is always at like 40 to 50%, and it's always sitting at about a gigahertz of speed no matter what. Now, at the same time, if you load up games like The Witcher 3, you'll notice that the GPU clock speed has suddenly shifted even higher. And that's because this is a game where it just pushes the clock. It actually overclocks the GPU a little bit to reach its performance metric. While at the same time, you'll actually notice whenever you're loading games on the Switch, especially in the case of Dragon Quest XI and Witcher 3, that it actually goes up to 1.8 gigahertz. And that's specifically because the Switch actually has a boost mode. It was actually introduced a couple months ago, or a year ago at this point, where the Switch boosts to about 1.8 gigahertz from 1.0 to load things faster. So the way that it works is it boosts that CPU high and the GPU goes down to like 70 megahertz. Because in a loading screen, you're not really rendering much, but you're using that extra CPU power to load things in the background. So this is sort of the performance you're looking at. When you dock your Nintendo Switch, you'll notice that the CPU never really changes, but the GPU clock speed goes up. And that's primarily because when you're docked, games often run at a higher resolution, which need more GPU processing power to run. So that's roughly what you're looking at from a processing standpoint. All right, now that you understand how Switch performance metrics work, this is running on an entirely stock Switch at this point. I didn't overclock, I didn't do anything. This is how the Switch works normally. What you're seeing is just performance metrics that is provided to you by homebrew code. Now, let's go to Cooking Mama. With Cooking Mama, the fun part about it is that it actually is improperly programmed, and it shows signs of being great shovelware. Now let me cover it real quick. When you load up Cooking Mama on the Nintendo Switch, it never touches boost mode. Throughout my entire testing of Cooking Mama, it only ever touches the stock speed. Now, it's probably because I'm missing a patch or two. You know, I did have to brave the seas to find this game. Never going to tell you what that means, but that being said, I don't have a patch for it. It's 1.0 code straight from the cartridge itself that was released very rarely around the world, so to speak. That being said, never goes above 1.8 gigahertz. It's a game that is just literally sitting at that clock speed. So it shows me that the developers didn't bother implementing boost mode at all. As far as GPU is considered, it actually touches either the docked profile or the undocked. It never overclocks or underclocks that GPU specifically. It stays at whatever Nintendo specifies for a docked or undocked profile. With that said though, no matter what I did in the game, it always touches 90 to 99% GPU load no matter what, which is about the weirdest thing that I've ever seen. For instance, sitting in the main menu with no 3D elements rendered, just a menu screen, I was looking at 99% graphical load. Now with Mama being rendered in the introduction screen where you have a 3D model, I'm still hitting 90% load. The only time that this load ever made sense to me was when I was actually in the game doing the mini stuff, like all the mini games like chopping up bread or whatever you want to call it. That being said, it shows me that there's a clear lack of programming knowledge going on to it. Another thing that I saw very interesting was while playing this game, I noticed that it was always 1 or 2 chords at whatever point being pushed up to actually being used. Whereas with a properly programmed Switch game like Witcher 3, all cores are being utilized effectively. So all I've really gathered is this game has terrible signs of being improperly programmed. It's always hitting 100% GPU load, it's always not using the CPU to its effect, and when it can use the boost mode to load things in faster, it never does. So again, it does heavily show me that the 1.0 version of this game, without any patches, is improperly produced for the Nintendo Switch. That's at least my specification on it. Now I noticed that I also had the internet connected, so I disconnected that real quick, started the Switch up brand new, fresh, loaded the game up, and I noticed even then it still had 100% GPU load. Now, if Bitcoin mining was to occur, this is a sign of it. You know, high GPU usage, high clock speeds, high utilization of cores, if there was actually Bitcoin mining going on. But what's odd is when there is no network connectivity, it's still pushing those same numbers for whatever reason. Now, for most Bitcoin mining, you're often connected to a command server that's giving you relays and commands and instructions. And it would make sense if I was connected to the internet and I was pushing these same metrics, again, at least for the GPU side. The CPU being underutilized is a sign to show you that maybe the Bitcoin mining isn't happening, or if it is, it's ineffectively happening. So bottom line is, not being connected to the internet, you're still seeing these crazy high GPU spikes. It's just bad programming. Nothing more, nothing less. Cooking Mama for the Nintendo Switch is just another shovelware game released by Nintendo or its partners, pulled back obviously for legal reasons, and done in such a way. Now there's a couple interesting posts I've seen online where people have found and dug through the NSP files for this game and have noticed that it actually straight up downloads music from YouTube, like full-on YouTube rips, and God knows what else. Ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing special about Cooking Mama. You know, I get that we're quarantined and everyone's making a meme or two nowadays, but looking into this the way that I have, I have completely confirmed this game, again, is just a sign of lazy programming and nothing more, nothing less. At the most part, it is what it is. It's just some random game that they've made, and it is Cooking Mama. So I guess if you're into Cooking Mama and all that stuff, it's fine. It does the job. I personally think the DS games were a little bit better, but it is what it is. I'm not the biggest Cooking Mama fan to begin with. But anyways, it wasn't a review for that. My initial, findings, my conclusive report is just bad programming. There's no Bitcoin mining going on. And if there is Bitcoin mining, then guess what? It's very ineffective at what it does because it never really pushes the Switch to an ungodly clock speed, and it never really sustains it for too long. The GPU load doesn't make any sense, which is why I think it may be improperly reported, or for some reason they're just pushing massive GPU load on areas which doesn't really require it. I mean, that's all I can really put it out to. I'm sure if there's a game developer out there that understands how GPU load works properly, I would love to have a description. But as far as I can tell, it's just not a properly made game. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mutahar. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.